Or God created a sun that literally damages our cells and gives us cancer over time.
No, it's not God's intent when he created the sun to give us cancer.
So God did something.
But because there is a breakdown in nature, and because there is a breakdown in our bodies, due to the fact that we told God to get lost, he steps back and chaos fills the gap. Chaos fills the gap. When we tell God, get lost, because he honors our free will, because he respects our free will, he steps back, and chaos, unfairness, injustice.
Before we get into this debate, I want you to pay close attention, because this isn't just another argument about religion. The question you're about to hear has challenged some of the greatest philosophers in history. If God is all-loving and all-powerful, why does so much suffering exist? Listen carefully to both sides before making up your mind. And if you enjoy thoughtful Christian discussions like this, subscribe to Bible Deep, because we break down the toughest questions about faith every week.
Why, if we have an all-good, all-knowing, and all-powerful God, is there so much, a gratuitous amount of suffering in this world? I mean, we live in a world where every minute, over 25 people die of diseases related to unclean water. Children starve. We have flies that will lay eggs inside the eye of a cow and they will eat the eye from the inside out. There is a gratuitous amount of suffering in this world. And it seems to me that if there is an all-loving, all-powerful, all-knowing God, that he would want for less suffering. And this is often referred to as not moral evil, which relates to free choice, but of natural evil. Why is there so much natural evil in this world?
Ultimately, I do not know. Philosophers and theologians have struggled with that question for thousands of years. They've never come up with an ultimate answer, and I can promise you I am not going to be able to ultimately answer you. But as a Christian, I have to think, and that's what we are here to do today, think. First point, no God, no problem. No God, what's your worldview? If there is no God, what is, is. Now, when you start saying, "Now, isn't that horrible?" When you start saying, or I start saying, that should not be, what we're implying is we know how it should be.
This is more of an internal critique. You can say that maybe someone without this set of morals from the Bible can't really critique it, but this is an internal critique of the worldview that posits that there is an all-good God. And if you say that the answer is that I don't know, then if we can't understand the standard by which God is good, how can we confidently say he's good in the first place?
I'm sorry, I can't live my life that way.
That's fine, yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm just
because I got to deal with suffering, and I think you're going to learn that you got to deal with suffering.
Absolutely.
And to kick back and have some internal critique of it, well, go to your philosophy class, okay? I got to deal with parents who are losing little kids.
Yeah.
To death.
Yeah, because of God.
No.
Yeah, because of the set of laws.
No, sir, that's not the first point. The first point is what should be. What should not be? That's the first point.
That's not what I'm trying to posit.
I know you're not. But if you're really asking, then you're going to have to allow me to answer it, right?
Sure, go ahead.
If there is no God, there is no such thing as something wrong with suffering. In other words, you don't know that a stick is crooked unless you know what a straight stick is. And the only way that you know that something is wrong with suffering is because you know it should not be this way. But if there is no God, everything is relative, and there's no such thing as it should be this way or it should be that way, because it's all relative. That's the first point. The second point is everybody has a problem with the question you're raising. Every atheist, agnostic, Buddhist, Hindu, Jew, Christian, we all have a problem with suffering. The question is, what is the best answer to that question? Nobody has a total watertight answer, and that's why I started with I do not know. And that's why I strongly disagree with you when it comes to that's not an answer. That's called being honest. And guess what? If any atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Jew, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian says, "Oh, that's simple, Cliff. I got an answer to that one," I am totally unimpressed. I call that arrogance. Total arrogance. Nobody has a complete answer to the problem of suffering. It's a very thoughtful, very hard issue that you've raised, and I respect you for raising it. So the question becomes, what is the best answer to the problem of suffering? And for me, it's the cross of Christ. Because the cross of Christ is a statement. Evil is real. Some worldviews say it's not real. Some worldviews say suffering is an illusion. Evil is an illusion. Others say it had to be fatalism, determinism, and that would be Islam and atheism. It had to happen. The cross of Christ says, no, 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 no. Evil is real. It doesn't have to be. It is real, though. Christ is bleeding and dying on a cross, suffering, and suffering is real. He's the most innocent person who's ever walked the earth, and he is suffering, and he didn't deserve to. Second point about the cross is forgiveness is real. God is in the business of forgiving, reconciling, putting the broken pieces back together. In other words, the biblical worldview says, you're born broken, life is about healing, and the grace of God is the glue. You're born broken, life is about healing, and the grace of God is the glue. And then the third point of the cross is, it's followed by a resurrection 3 days later. So there's the ultimate solution for suffering. Forgiveness and eternal life in heaven, where there will be no more suffering. Now, I don't know of a better philosophy or a better religion that deals with that issue of suffering, which is a great issue. I'm so glad you raised it. I know of no better philosophy or religion that deals head-on with the problem of suffering. Because when you're worshiping a man who's bleeding and dying on a cross, obviously suffering, when you begin to realize how innocent he is, then you're beginning to realize, whoa, God is not an aloof deity. God is a deity who's gotten involved in suffering, big time. He knows experientially, not just intellectually or theoretically, what it's really like.
Subjecting himself to suffering doesn't explain away why a good God would allow for such a gratuitous amount of suffering in this world. And if the answer is, I don't know, that's fine. I can respect that answer. But if the answer is, I don't know why a good God would allow for so much suffering, especially to people and things we would say don't deserve it, such as, babies dying of starvation, then how can we confidently say that God is good?
When a family member comes up to me and says, Cliff, can I borrow $250? Can I prove to you that that family member is going to pay me back the $250? No. But if the record is that the family member has great integrity and honesty, and in the past has paid back all the loans I've given him, then it is not stupid of me to trust that family member by giving him $250. Similarly, I do not know why God allowed Hitler, Stalin to be born. I don't know why so much suffering occurs. I don't know. And you see,
Did you notice what just happened? The skeptic isn't simply asking why suffering exists anymore. He's asking something much deeper. If Christians admit they don't know why God allows suffering, how can they confidently say God is good? That's one of the strongest objections in philosophy. And now the conversation is moving from emotion to evidence. Let's see how this gets answered.
The question that you're asking is, well, why would God allow it? Which means you're asking me to read the mind of God. I can't read your mind, never mind God's mind. But I do know that God has revealed some truth. And it's total arrogance for me to say, I know all there is to know about God. Good gracious, if you got a postdoc in biology, do you know all there is to know about biology?
Of course not.
Exactly. In fact, do you have exhaustive knowledge in any area of knowledge?
No one can have exhaustive knowledge.
Exactly. And it is flat out arrogance to say, I know all there is to know about biology. I know all there is to know about physics. I know all there is to know about American history. I know all there is to know about psychology. Nobody has exhaustive knowledge on any field. So therefore, to think that I'm going to have exhaustive knowledge on God would be really arrogant on my part, wouldn't it? I know all of God. No, I don't know God, all of God. I know what God has chosen to reveal. And I've told you flat up, God has not revealed the answer to your excellent question, which is, why has God allowed so much suffering and evil to occur? But what I do know is, I've experienced the goodness of God, and I've seen the goodness of God revealed in scriptures, in the lives of different people, be it David. In fact, just this week, it's fascinating you asked this question. I was studying Rahab and Achan. Now, you know the weird thing about Rahab and Achan? Rahab was a Gentile prostitute who was saved from Jericho being taken over by the Jews. And who was Achan? Achan was a Jew who stole property that he had no business stealing from Jericho, and therefore they were whooped up on in the Battle of Ai and taking over Ai. Notice it was a Gentile who received God's grace, and it was a Jew who received God's mercy. So let's be real honest. The suffering of Jericho was not genocide. God is gracious and good to people, be you Gentile or Jew. But I have confronted over the past 45 years far too many people who say God is not good, and the reason he's not good is because he plays favorites and the Jews were his pets. And there was a lot of suffering in Jericho, and there were a lot of innocent people that died as the Jews marched in and took over Canaan. But when you read the text carefully, you begin to see the goodness of God and the grace of God is revealed even in Joshua and Judges.
I don't think that God being good, I mean, we can both admit that the God of the Bible has some good aspects. I think that this is probably strong evidence that he is not all good, because this suffering is unnecessary. It doesn't require free will. I understand moral evil, murder, rape, things like that, existing as a result of free will, but this natural evil, babies dying of starvation, children dying of cancer, these natural evils are completely unnecessary. And if you're to posit that there is a all-good God that wouldn't want those things to exist, this is, why do they exist?
Why are they unnecessary?
We're unable to give an answer.
Why are they unnecessary?
Why are they unnecessary?
If God creates a world filled with human beings who have free will, this is an incredible room. You know when it was put together? Last week. That's idiotic. This gorgeous room was put together over a period of time by people who sacrificed, were generous, and now we benefit from being in this room. That's an example of the consequences of our decisions because God gave us a free will. Well, guess what? When we make irresponsible decisions, when the civil engineers who put this place together don't do their job and all of a sudden collapses and the roof hits us in the head, there's going to be a lot of suffering because of the irresponsible decision of some civil engineers and some construction people. But due to the responsible decisions of these people, we benefit from it. Well, those children were born into a cursed, messed up world. And my little...
No fault of their own.
That's correct, no fault of their own. But that's where they're born into. And I am really naive if I think the way I treat you ultimately is not going to have incredible consequences that go far beyond today.
To say that it's a child, that a child deserves to die of starvation.
Who ever said that a child deserves to die?
Well, it's inconsistent with an all-knowing, all-powerful,
No, but you just stepped into a big hole you dug out for yourself, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
If God creates me with a free will, and if he creates the civil engineer with a free will, the civil engineer does not have to do his job well, and we get crushed. Not because we deserve it, but because we live in a world of cause and effect, and people have free will, and there are consequences to their irresponsible decisions. And if I'm an irresponsible parent, if I'm an irresponsible dad, my child will suffer, not because they deserve it, but because they're born into a world where God has created us with free will, and that means we can build a beautiful building, or we can be irresponsible, build a building, and it comes crashing down on people's heads. Nobody deserves it, and that's why I disagree strongly with your use of the word deserve.
We agree. We both think they don't deserve it. Free will accounts for moral evil, as I said, rape, murder, things that people choose to do. But again, no one is using their free will to die 1 month into their life of starvation.
Obviously.
Right, so that's the very problem here, is that free will does not account for these things.
Yes, it does. That child is born into a world where human beings have rebelled
Not
against
by their
God.
free will.
It's called the fall. You read about it in Genesis chapter 3. There are consequences that lead down through the generations, consequences. And we are responsible ultimately for our rebellion against God. And it affects other people's lives. The same way when we make good decisions, it impacts people's lives in a beautiful way.
Yeah, so I mean, you're the one saying that we are responsible for our actions. The child did not choose to eat the fruit in the Garden of Eden.
That's
yet
correct.
It still dies of starvation 1 month into its life.
Why?
in an
Because the
agonizing
child
death.
is born into an unfair world. The
Not
child
by
is
any fault
not
of its
born
own.
into the Garden of Eden. The child is born into an unfair world. Obviously, a lot of people starve today because there are very selfish people today who hoard food, who are greedy and not generous.
And not because of like famine and
I can
droughts.
promise you, I don't look into the face of a starving child and think, oh wow, it's because of Adam and Eve. No.
I don't either.
Adam and Eve are part of it, a very small part of it. They started a rebellion against God, but we have continued that rebellion in a very effective way. So, a tremendous amount of hurting. I mean, come on, man, think about it. Why do people get cancer? Often because companies have been very, very greedy.
Or God created a sun that literally damages our cells and gives us cancer over time.
No, it's not God's intent when he created the sun to give us cancer.
So God did something.
But because there is a breakdown in nature, and because there is a breakdown in our bodies, due to the fact that we told God to get lost, he steps back and chaos fills the gap. Chaos fills the gap. When we tell God, get lost, because he honors our free will, because he respects our free will, he steps back and chaos, unfairness, injustice fill the gap. Your emotional intensity shows me it's not just a purely intellectual interior critique. You've either been hurt or you've got a real axe to grind. You are obviously trying to make a point.
No,
and I respect
I'm
that.
trying to
I have no
understand.
problem with that, but my problem is with your intellectual dishonesty
Where have I
in
been
acting
intellectually
like
dishonest?
this is just an internal critique. No, it's not just an internal critique. Let's be honest.
This is why
Let's be honest with each other. You have something that you're after, and that's fine.
Yeah,
but
I'm
let's
after an
be
answer.
honest about it, okay?
I'm after an answer, yeah.
No, you're not just intellectually wanting an answer.
What am I
You
after?
are, I don't know, you tell me, but there's something more than just an intellectual critique.
Called the problem of suffering. It's an extension of the problem of evil, and I'm looking for an answer to it. And if the answer is I don't know, then how can we say God is good? I've yet to hear an answer.
Obviously, it's I don't know. That's how I started. All right? So I ultimately don't know, but I do know this, and that's what we're doing. We're working through. And you're having a hard time working with it through me, with me.
Maybe the answers are just not convincing.
Fine, give me a better answer.
What I'm simply doing is pointing out that the amount of gratuitous suffering that is what we both agree is unjust in this world is inconsistent with the being that fits all three of those qualities.
You set up your little triumvirate there, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good.
Yes, you agree to it.
And yes, but I'm pointing out, you've got to realize this all-powerful God can choose to partially limit his power by giving us a free will, which means God is opening up the door for us to be creative. I've bent over backwards to point out the beauty of this creativity of this room, but if the civil engineers did not do a good job, we get crushed. It's an example of an abuse of free will where the guys don't do their job, and we suffer. And the Bible insists because human beings have rebelled against God, a flood tide of evil has swept into our experience, and innocent people get hurt.
This is where the debate becomes fascinating. Both speakers agree that innocent children don't deserve to suffer. The disagreement isn't about the facts, it's about the explanation. One side says suffering disproves an all-good God. The other says suffering is the consequence of humanity living in a fallen world. Two completely different worldviews looking at the exact same reality. Which explanation makes more sense to you?
And innocent people die, little babies, which is the example you're using. And yet you just can't accept that. And I don't think you're being intellectually honest.
I'm getting frustrated that you're not listening because the problem of evil, free will accounts for moral evils, murder, rape, things that people choose, okay? That is well understood.
Oh, come on, I've already answered this one.
No, you keep going
Yes,
back.
I have.
You keep saying that free
I
will
said
is
there
the
are
problem. You keep saying
consequences.
Free will is the reason that a child is starving.
No,
The child
I
is not
haven't.
choosing to starve.
That is not what I said.
Free will does not account for natural
I have
evil.
said there are consequences when we tell God to shove off.
We'll take the one that you found most important, the very first one you started with.
Yeah.
That is the toughest one for me as well, personally.
Yeah.
Not intellectually, because I don't know if you know this, but this has actually been answered intellectually, philosophically. There's a reason why at Texas A&M and just about every university across the nation, statistically, philosophers are becoming theists.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, especially the 70s, all philosophy departments were like atheists. So the reason why with this one, they're all of a sudden becoming Christian theists, at least theists, many Christian, is because primarily an incredible philosopher named Alvin Plantinga.
Okay.
You've heard of him? Okay. So he's one of the top philosophers in the US, maybe the world. And he came up with this no-seums argument.
Yeah.
Okay, good, you know it. Okay, so I don't know if there's are there no-seums in Texas? We got a lot of no-seums in New England, like endless, and they are the worst. And so they'll come up and they'll bite you and you can't see them. They're no-seums. We sometimes go and camp, and that's when they really get you out in the woods. So when you camp, you set up a tent. If you had, say, a Saint Bernard, a really big dog, in that tent, you would go in and you say, he's there or he's not there.
Yep.
If you go into your tent, and you're tenting in Vermont or wherever, and the no-see-ums have gotten through the screen, you cannot see them, but they're there. Alvin Plantinga said that with the St. Bernard, it is clear when it comes to suffering, whether that suffering is really there or not, and what is the purpose for it. With no-see-ums, though, you cannot see those no-see-ums, and when they bite you, you don't know the reason for the suffering, Plantinga is saying.
Sure.
And so he's taking this with God, not necessarily the God of the Bible, but God saying, hey, look, if there's a God who is big enough for you to get so morally outraged over why he allows suffering, then surely you must allow the fact that God could have reasons for that suffering that you do not know about. But see, you keep coming back and you say, well, you know, children, and what about that insect that lands on the frog and slowly sucks his brains out? You know, this is not good. Says who? The second best philosopher that I know of is Arthur Leff out of Yale. He would look at you right now if he was sitting here. I think he's dead. But if he was here, he would look at you and he'd say, says who? Says you? And so between Alvin and Arthur Leff, I don't think you have an answer.
Says you too, right? You also say these things are bad, right?
I say these things are bad just like a Jew, just like a Muslim. Anybody who has an objective, moral, transcendent source can say these things are bad.
Yeah, I think most people would say that they're bad. And would you base those things being bad based on your book?
Absolutely not.
So then you
based off of a moral, transcendent source. That's why, man,
right.
That's why I'm just talking about Jews as well. Yeah. Jews, Muslims, any monotheistic religion. That's why Martin Luther King Jr. was so successful. He was appealing to a moral, transcendent source above his racist culture. That's why he talked about a law above the law.
He was ignoring some parts, I think, but that's besides the point.
No, he wasn't ignoring any parts. You're talking about
you're
saying he could have ignored parts in the Bible. I'm not talking about the Bible right now.
Okay. Exactly, we agree. He was ignoring some parts.
He's focused on the New Covenant. Yeah. That's more recent.
I mean, it's still the same God. I fail to wrap my head around a God that would allow for slavery to exist. But I don't want to get too much on the slavery argument. But this no-see-ums argument, it just sounds like an argument from silence. It's saying we can't understand, maybe there are answers, and I agree, like maybe there are answers, but until I have those answers, I'm left without a way of determining whether God is actually good. If I can't understand the standards by which God is good, how can I confidently say he is good? If the answer is I don't know, then you can't confidently say he's good.
Then you tell me what is ultimately goodness and what is evil.
I'm appealing to your book. I'm appealing to what
no
is
one's
taught in
appealing.
Christianity.
We're not appealing to our book for the last time.
to a book.
Okay,
We've said this
never once.
10 times. We've said
That's
this.
why I think you're dishonest.
Right.
at
I think you're
times.
smarter than that.
Never once did I appeal
you're
to a
being
book. Never once.
I think you
thought your
are.
morals came from your religion.
You're a smart guy. Don't act up.
I thought your morals came from your religion.
No, our morals do not come from religion.
So
I would never have that.
If your morals do not come from your religion, then it's possible to say these things are bad without being religious.
When Dostoevsky, when he said, if there is no God, all things are permissible, he's not saying that atheists are somehow worse off than theists, right? In terms of morally speaking. No, he was appealing. So many atheists get that wrong. What he was appealing to, yet again, is the moral transcendent source. Dostoevsky became a Christian, but he wasn't appealing to the Bible. He was appealing to an objective moral source.
Okay.
Do you see the difference?
So that
See,
exists-
you're trying to appeal to ethics within the Bible. We're not even touching that. That's not what we're talking about. Okay?
I wouldn't want to touch them either. They allow
Well,
for
yeah.
slavery.
Well, oh my goodness, you wouldn't want to touch them either. You live by them, my friend. And you don't even realize it.
So a famous quote from Penn Jillette that says,
Oh, not Penn Jillette.
yeah, as an atheist, I murder and I rape as much as I'd like, which is none at all.
Wait, sorry, say that again?
As an atheist,
Okay.
I murder and I rape as much as I'd like, which is none at all. I don't think that you have to necessarily get your morals from this religion, which kind of sounds like what...
No, you're exactly, we're agreeing with you. I'm so glad you said that. Friedrich Nietzsche would look at Penn...
I'm not a Nietzsche
would
fan.
pick,
I'm
would
just
look,
me,
okay,
okay? I'm just me, okay?
Yeah, but he made the, probably in the last 100 years, you could easily say that Nietzsche made the biggest difference for atheism in terms of how much he wrote and how he, I mean, Hitler, how he translated. Okay,
Yeah, Hitler, who had
this would be
God
easy.
Mittel's
This would be an
God with us
easy
on the belt
response
of
to
every
this
SS
comedian.
officer.
Very simple response
hold
to
on.
this comedian.
Hold on.
And the response Nietzsche would say is, yeah, you're not murdering. Yeah, you're not raping. That's because, quotable Nietzsche, he would say, you're claiming to be an atheist, but you're really just living like a Christian.
Well, Hitler famously had...
Was a Christian?
Gott mit
Went to
uns,
seminary?
Gott mit uns, God with us, on the belt of every, or the belt buckle of every SS officer, and he wrote in Mein Kampf... that he believed he was
And how did
carrying
he
the will of
switch?
God.
How did he switch? He said Christians are the weakest form of religion. So he obviously had to completely deface Christianity in order to pull off what he pulled off. So please don't go the line of whether it's Stalin or Hitler and how they had a Christian form of upbringing, which...
Definitely not Stalin.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, some would say Stalin, though.
I don't
So let's be consistent in terms of those who have bastardized the faith. I don't think we want to go down that road. Because we could, I mean, if you look historically, atheistic regimes have killed
Yeah,
more than
absolutely.
100 million.
Pol Pot and- yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
glad you know the stats, because most deny that.
The Crusades are killing Muslims in the name of Christianity, and Muslims killing Christians in the name of
Okay,
Islam. You know,
there were a lot of good things that came from the Crusades.
Sure, there were
Craziest,
also the murder
most
of many,
unhinged
many
quote,
people.
perhaps, of the day. Right there.
Unhinged to say
Oh, a lot of
that
people
was
would say, "Oh my gosh,
the
did you just
rape
say?
and murder?
Did you just say the Crusades? Did you say the Crusades did good things?
No, sure.
What I meant when I
think
said
so, yeah.
Oh, okay, you agree
I think
with
there
me?
were, yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
that,
I think there
man.
were good things that happened. I think largely the Crusades were a
Okay,
result of
so
Muslim
then,
aggression within
okay,
the
so then
area.
you're kind of rescinding your point then.
No, absolutely not.
Yes, absolutely. Whether
No,
it was
not at all.
Constantine, oh no, Constantine was a little better, but later on the Crusades, did they do things in the name of Christ that Christ would have completely denied? Certainly. Does that in any way? Does that in any way? Hold on. Does that in any way characterize Christ in such a way where he wasn't who he said he was, or that Christians somehow are buying into the wrong book, or any of these things? Because I could look at my dear dad over here, and he was buttering his muffin a second ago. Okay, so I could use my knife, or he was using it. He could use his knife to butter this muffin right now, or he could use his knife to stab me in the side. Okay, well, it's the abuse of the knife. It doesn't mean the knife is any less credible or that we shouldn't use knives. No, it was the abuse of the knife is why he stabbed me. It was meant, it's a butter knife, it was meant to butter that bread, that muffin. So Christianity with the Crusades or anything, sure, you can use Christianity in a way that dominates, in a way that perhaps could be racist.
Yeah, definitely.
But that doesn't in any way kind of... Jesus spoke against hypocrisy more than anything else.
Yeah, okay.
Which I like, by the way.
Okay, cool. So you're saying, like, you can't blame Christianity for these things because they go against Christianity. What about when the Amalekites are ruthlessly slaughtered and Samuel keeps alive the king and some of the best animals?
You just said you didn't want to go to the Old Testament slavery. Are we going there?
Well,
we
no,
just
this-
did that
this
for
is not
20
about
minutes
slavery.
earlier.
This is not about slavery. So the Amalekites are slaughtered, okay? And Samuel keeps alive the king of the Amalekites and some of the best animals. And God actually gets mad at Samuel and says, "Did I not tell you to kill every last man, woman, child, and animal in that kingdom?" So we can point to examples even from within the Bible where there are things that go against the commandments that God commands.
I would not
Seems
say so.
inconsistent. How-
God
so
is
where does God-
absolutely allowed for certain to judge. Would you like a judgment day where all wrongs are made right? Would you like that?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know.
What does that mean?
I think if you and I were talking just by ourselves, you would be screaming for a judgment day. What does that mean?
Why
That
would
means the
change?
ones who were killed, butchered to death by Pol Pot. That means the crack baby. It means the woman that I was just counseling who had 5 correctional surgeries because her husband was beating her to death. All of those we want, you keep talking while I'm talking. All of these we want a form of, hey, we want justice. And how interesting, all these nations, do you know there's been studies on these nations, the ones that believe in Judgment Day are the ones that live way more peacefully because they know that judgment is going to be reserved for God and not for each other.
That's great. It doesn't mean it's true.
So why do you not believe, you looked at your watch, and why do you not believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Like I said earlier, part of it is the morality of God in the Old Testament. And if you're a Trinitarian, you believe Jesus Christ is God, Jesus does come and say some things that don't maybe align with the things that happen in the Old Testament, and I think that just is kind of contradictory to the nature of God. Why would he change his stance on something? But then also the second part is just the historical evidence. And so I think if we were to get into that, it would it would be a long time, but I don't know, it's up to you guys. I don't want to take up all the time with the people behind me because I know you guys have to go soon.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into this.
This may be the most important moment in the entire discussion. The debate is no longer just about suffering, it's about where morality itself comes from. If there's no objective moral standard beyond humanity, who gets to decide what's truly good or evil? That's the question both sides are wrestling with now. Watch how each speaker answers it, because your answer to that question shapes everything else in this debate.